Woof.
All right, so this is new DevBlog out today, May 31st. I just happened to think to check, so I have not even seen anything other than the title of these two, and oh, the second DevBlog, just by the title, oh boy, wait for that one. But let's go with this one first. This is balance changes to public test 12.5, so let's see what this is all about. We are applying balance changes to Italian ships, German destroyers, Japanese cruisers, and a number of other ships, as well as to the smoke generator modification 1 upgrade and the X-ray Papa Unaone signal. Okay, well, let's see what this is. Smoke generator modification 1 upgrade. Action time bonus reduced from 30 to 20%. And remove the penalty to smoke dispersal time. It's now available for tier 5 to 10 ships that use the exhaust smoke generator consumable. Oh, so meaning we can put this on Italian cruisers. Meaning we can put this on Italian DDs. And some other things. Very interesting. So, yeah, that's going to be most definitely interesting. So that's an upgrade that you buy for coal, that you would put in one of your upgrade slots. So that's very interesting. So they are nerfing the time a little bit, but they're taking away the dispersion penalty. So it's kind of a tit for tat a little bit there. I can't call it overall a buff at all, but I can't call it a full-on nerf either. And apparently the way this reads, saying it's now available for tier 5 to 10 ships using exhaust smoke generator, well, apparently it wasn't available to them before. I didn't know that. I've never really looked at that. Or it wasn't available for all of those tiers. I'm not sure which. So, but in any case, it's available for more ships than it was before. So, very cool. Now they're talking about the X-ray Papa Unaone signal, which is the smoke signal. No pun intended. That was I just realized what I said as I was saying that. Okay, smoke signals. So basically they reduced the bonus given to the smoke generator's action time from plus 15 to plus 10%. Well, it is a signal that's earnable through things. I mean, I'm here nor there with that. The only place I do usually use these are on my ships that have exhaust smoke. I mean, that's typically about the only thing I use that on. And I get why they would do this too, is they're saying, imagine if they didn't give the penalty to the smoke generator up here at the top. Imagine if they kept that at 30% and left this at 15%. I mean, you get almost 50% longer smoke duration, which is crazy. But sometimes that can be a detriment as well as a benefit. So keep that in mind. But yeah. And then they're talking about all these ships with the crawling smoke generator. The duration of the crawling smoke generator consumable has been increased. So I guess they're saying that just across the board for these 6 ships, that regardless, I'm trying to understand this because it looks like it's sandwiched in between two things, but it certainly looks like what they're saying is that we're just giving you a 12-second buff on the crawling smoke generator consumable. Okay, I'm okay with that. Smoke generator Mod 1, which is what we talked about up here, will become available to mount for all Italian ships with access to the exhaust smoke generator consumable. In the current game version, this upgrade together with X-ray Papa Unaone signal would give Italian ships quite a significant advantage, so we've tweaked their settings. To ensure the changes don't reduce effectiveness of ships mounting crawling smoke generator, the base action time of this consumable has been increased. So, okay, I see what they're doing now, and I won't complain about that too much. They're saying, okay, you know, we're wanting to make these available for the Italian ships with the exhaust smoke, but because it would just be too much to give those exhaust smoke ships, we're having to nerf this signal time that it gives you for the smoke duration, I guess you'd say, and we're having to nerf the modification upgrade. But because we understand the impact it has on our crawling smoke ships, we're just going to give y'all, you know, basically about 10%. We're going to give you about 10%, or actually a little more than that. That's 12 seconds. So that's actually, what? About 13%, like that. Somewhere in that neighborhood. So, yeah. That's pretty good. Pretty good. You know, whenever I see stuff like this, it makes me believe that some of those making decisions at Wargaming actually do play the game and understand how things work. When other times it doesn't look like they've ever played the game. So this is good. Can't complain about anything I see here. Now, more balance changes on individual ships. These are the Italian ships. So CONTE CAVOUR at Tier 5. They've increased the Sigma from 1.6 to 1.7, so more accurate battleship gun. Very nice. Very nice. Tier 6 Leone. They've given it an extra smoke generator charge. Well, how about that? And buffed the torpedo reload time. Now, I think if I remember correctly, this is the ship that gets, like, even though it's a Tier 6 ship, it's got what? Is it two double launchers, or is it 3 double launchers? I can't recall for sure. Or is it something like 3 single launchers? It's something weird. And now that I've mentioned that, I have to know. So we're going to look at the shiptool.st site, and we're going to look up the Leone right now. The Leone. Where are my torps? The Leone has 2x2. So yeah, my first thought was correct. It has 2 dual launchers. Now, that doesn't help out the fact that the torps are 51 knot torps and all that stuff. But at least they have a good range, and they have even a better reload now, and low detectability, which is good. So, all right, that's beneficial. DUCA d'Aosta and DUCA DEGLI ABRUZZI. The number of depth charges dropped per weapon charge has been increased from 2 to 4. So they're saying they'll let you roll 4 barrels over the side instead of 2 now. Okay. It sucks that you're in a cruiser that has, you know, depth charges because, well, you know, supposedly shotgunning's not a thing. But okay, it's something. It's an improvement. I don't think that is such a situation specific buff that the times that it'll be useful are going to be very, very few, unless you are extremely aggressive in your DUCAs and just charge at every DD you see. Next we go to the FR025, the underpowered Yolo Emilio. Main battery reload time reduced from 6.6 to 5.8. Huh. Torpedo range increased from 6 to 7. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay. So 2 buffs. All right, Adriatico at tier 9, Italian DD, and the Attilio Regolo at tier 10 allowed the mounting of the Fire Control System Modification 2 upgrade in 6th slot. Is that not the range mod? Is that the one that gives you more range? And that would make sense. That's interesting. That is definitely interesting. I wonder if I've got something here that tells. I don't see it here, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. It's going to be giving you more the opportunity to have more gun range if you'd rather have that than better reload. All right. Next up is the Perth at tier 6 Commonwealth cruiser. Great ship. The number of depth charges dropped. Her weapon charges have been increased from 1 to 2. Wait a minute. The Duca d'Aosta got it from 2 to 4. Poor Perth. And Perth is more of a DD than the Ducas are, because Perth has fantastic concealment for a cruiser. And you have to have, because you don't have any range on the guns to speak of. But anyway, okay. Again, so situational that it's, if you need it, then it's useful. But there's the times you're going to need it are going to be so few and far between that it's not that effective, in my opinion. Hector, tier 9, torpedo range increased from 10 to 12 kilometers, so another buff. The wide torpedo spread option has been replaced with a narrow one. Now, I'm not 100% familiar because I don't have the Hector. I'm taking it that it had a regular spread and a wide spread, and they have changed it to be a regular and a narrow. That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting out of that. And Citadel damage restored increased from 10 to 50%. So I guess the spreadsheet told them this ship was getting Citadel'd out of existence. So, okay. So again, more buffs. Dealing out. And honestly, I can kind of get it, because over time, as we have power creep with all the new released ships, at some point, you're going to have to go back to all the other older ships and either throw them some bones if you want people to play them, or do something, because why play some of these ships if you got other things that are just better? So that seems to be part of where some of this can be coming from. So, all of the German DDs, the tier 2, 3, 4, 5, and the German cruisers 2 and 3. So this is just the low tier stuff. Penetration of main battery HE shells with a caliber of 105 millimeters has been increased from 18 to 26. So they have given all of the boats basically the German quarter pin. So that's kind of interesting if you play those tiers. T-22 at tier 5, torp reload time reduced by about 10%, and main battery reload improved by reduced by 10%. Wow, we're just handing out the buffs, let me tell you. The German alternate line DDs from tier 7, C-31, 8 Gustav, 9 Felix, and 10 the Elbing, they have added an engine boost consumable to a separate slot, or added the engine boost consumable. So I'm assuming that before that was you had to choose between it and something else, is my guess. Okay, interesting. And the Z31 at tier 7, they also reduced the main battery reload time by a full second. That's like 12.5% reduction, so that's pretty awesome. Okay. Tier 8 Z35. Main battery 180-degree turn time reduced from 18 to 10 seconds. Now, I believe Z35 is the gunboat that has 5 guns. It's in some ways would be somewhat similar to Fletcher, except that it's, you know, German and has some of the German shell characteristics, and you have short-range torps. But definitely an interesting boat. The parameters of the hydro consumable have been changed. Now it is similar to the hydroacoustic search consumable from York. Wonder what that means. I wonder what that means. Let's go back to the ship tool thing again, and we're going to find out. That's Z35 here. Let's bring this up on the screen here so you can see what I'm doing. So we're going to bring up Z35 and the York. Right? Yeah. All right. And here's the 2 ships. So let's look at the consumables. So Z35 currently has a 100-second, 5-kilometer hydro for ship detection and 3.5 for torpedoes. 120-second cooldown. So are they saying they're going to increase the range to 5.5? Are they going to increase the action time as well? That's interesting. It's not a gigantic buff, but it's definitely a buff. Interesting. Interesting. And oh, the Z35 also has, yeah, basically British smoke as well. So it's a funky little ship. You know, it's really made to be a gunboat, kind of in the vein of the British ships, but with worse torps or shorter range torps. So that's interesting. Let's keep going. So another buff. Have we even seen really any true nerfs tonight? Not many, if any. Tier 5 Britannia at on the French line. Sigma increased from 1.8 to 1.9. And the 180-degree turn time reduced from 60 to 45 seconds. Now, folks, that is huge. Number one, it's a freaking 25% reduction. But number two, I mean, that gets your turret traverse when you take the captain skill down to near 40 seconds, which is, well, let's just say you can tell a huge difference between 40 and 60. I'll just say that. So wow, okay. That's those are welcome changes if you play at tier 5. Viribus Unitas Sigma value increased from 1.8 to 1.9. Main battery reload time reduced. Wow, okay. I did not realize that ship was underperforming. I thought it was actually performing okay. But granted, that's not a very big DPM buff. You're talking about maybe 0.3 of a, what, 0.3 of a percent? 1 second? Or about 3%, I'm sorry. Well, about 3.3% maybe. But yeah, okay. Pretty awesome. I played the Viribus recently and had fun in it. Pretty tanky little ship, but you don't have much health to give up. Now let's go to the Commonwealth, or not Commonwealth, but to the European ship, the DD Tier 8 Oland. Main battery reload time reduced. 2.5 to 2.3 seconds. So again, almost a 10%, not quite a 10% reduction. Probably about a 8% reduction in that range. Wow. Okay. Now we're going over to the British. My gosh, how much stuff is there here? Tier 5 Hawkins. Detectability range reduced from 12.2 to 11.5. That's 700 meters. That's pretty good. All other types of detectability reduced accordingly. Main battery reload time reduced from 11.7 to 10.5. That's a solid 10%. Geez. Okay. Let's hope that they're not going too far on these and then have to come back and backtrack or retract and move back the other way a little bit. So we got Tier 6 repulse for the British. Reduce the main battery reload from 27 to 25 seconds. I believe I get. That's a 6-gun battleship and something, yeah, it needed help. Number of repair party charges have been increased by 1. Wow, okay. Big time buff. Leander, main battery reload time increased. Ooh, so here's one of our first nerfs tonight. Increased by half a second. So that's about what? Probably about a 6% increase. So you're losing somewhere around 6% DPM roughly. Okay. Now we got the Tier 8 Hampshire. Main battery reload reduced from 10.5 to 10. Okay. And concealment reduced by 500 meters. And all other. So buffs. So far, Leander's the big loser. Everybody else is a winner. Now we're on to the Americans. One of my favorite Tier 7 ships, as I call it, the Indianapolis. Really, the thickness of the bow and stern plating has been increased 16 to 25 millimeters. Oh, brother. One of my favorite cruisers at Tier 7 and one that I play the best, the only cruiser at Tier 7 that has, well, one of only, what, is it 2 cruisers, I think, at Tier 7 that have radar? And it has 10-kilometer radar. The Indianapolis is kind of like an amalgam between the Pensacola and the Baltimore. It's kind of, it looks a little bit like a Pensacola, and it's kind of got the Pensacola shells, but it's got the Baltimore's radar and some of that. And now it looks like it's getting at least some of the Baltimore's armor. That's welcome, because I have caught some wonky shell hits. That is awesome news for the Tater for sure. And the Tier 8 Anchorage, the Hydro Hydro Search consumable has been moved to a separate slot. So it's basically the size of its toolbox was increased. Hey, okay. Now, Tier 8 North Carolina and North Carolina CLR, okay. Sigma value increased 2 to 2.05. Okay. Make it more accurate. I'm okay with that. It's not a huge change, but it's still a change. Now we get into the Pan Asians. These are going to be what? DDs and cruisers. So the Silly Wangi, number of depth charges increased from 2 to 10. Okay. Well, if you're using the Silly Wangi and you want to go sub hunting, well, now you have something to do it with. Holy crap. Giant buff. And main battery 180-degree rotation time reduced from 18.6 to 9 seconds. Okay. Let me make sure I understand which boat the Silly Wangi is. I think this is the one. Okay. Silly Wangi is kind of like it's a little bit like a Tier 8 version of the Nustra Shimi, is what this is designed to be. Or a Tier 8 version of the, whatever the Russian Tech Tree ship is. So, okay. That's cool. And we have the Wukong torpedo, and this is premium cruiser. Reload time reduced. Whoa. Reduced by 22 seconds. Holy crap. I mean, that's well over 20%. Jeez. Okay. I'm a little bit shocked at all these buffs. I'm just shocked at it. Tier 9 Sejong. Main battery reload time reduced from 5.2 to 4.8. Interesting. Torp reload time reduced from 133 to 125. Also interesting. More buffs. Now we go on to the motherland. The Soviet ships. Tier 5 Kotovsky. Wow, a significant improvement to concealment and main battery reload buff. You've got Tier 5 Podvoisky concealment buff. Really? That's all you're getting, but it is a concealment buff. Okay. Tier 8 Kiev. Slight concealment buff. But a air concealment nerf. And a slight smoke firing penalty buff. Very, very slight. Okay. I don't really see what much of that'll do other than maybe a little bit for the concealment. Tier 9 Tashkent. Slight concealment buff and air concealment nerf. Slight smoke firing penalty buff. So, right. Man, this is one of the biggest DevBlogs I've seen in a long time. We got Tier 5 Matsuki. Torp reload time reduced from 73 to 65. Tier 6 Fubuki. Main battery reload time reduced from 8 to 7.5. Interesting. I love my Fubu. It's great. One of my favorite Tier 6 DDs. You got Tier 8 Cruiser Mogami. Reload time reduced from 15 to 14 seconds, and it has needed that. Ibuki, main battery reload time reduced from 13.7 to 13. Only about maybe, 5%? But still, that's 5% more DPM. Zhao, main battery 180 degree rotation reduced from 36 to 30. Okay, that's muy bueno. Very good. Now we got some of the new ships that were released recently, the new cruisers, the Tier 7 Omono. Main battery reload reduced from 13 to 11.5, and the rotation time of the guns reduced from 36 to 30, which matches what was done with Zhao. Tier 8 Shimanto, full rudder shift time reduced from 15 to 11. And with the researchable hull reduced from 10.8 to 8.1. Okay. Big rudder shift boost. Tier 9 Takahashi, same thing. You got the rudder shift time reduced by 4 full seconds. That's a 25% reduction. As well as better with the researchable hull as well. And the same thing for the Yodo. So basically, they're getting a big buff there. So I'm going to try and recap this very briefly. Basically, starting with the Japanese, the cruisers in the newer cruiser lines are getting a really big rudder shift buff. The Zhao is getting a main battery rotation time buff. Ibuki and Mogami are getting reload buffs. Fubuki's getting a main battery reload buff, and Matsuki's getting a torpedo reload buff. Awesome. Here on the Russians, looks like we're getting some slight concealment improvements on the Tier 5, 8, and 9 DDs. And we're getting some DPM buffs and concealment buffs on the Tier 5 Kotovsky. Going to the Pan-Asians, on the Sejong here, we're getting some torpedo and main battery reload buffs. We're getting torpedo reload buffs on Wukong, and we're getting depth charge and turret rotation buffs on Siliwangi. On the American side, the North Carolina is getting a slight Sigma buff. Anchorage getting a dedicated hydro. Indianapolis, this is the Tater pick of the night right here. That is gigantic on what you can now bow tank with this thing, because basically that means the Indianapolis can now bow tank 356 millimeter guns, where before it could not. It takes 380s or 381s to overmatch 25 millimeters. I think they overmatch 26. So that is gigantic for the Indianapolis. So now that means when you're sitting in a place and you're kind of scared to poke out, now you can stick your nose out when you're shooting at some of these 356 millimeter gunned battleships. Nice. On the Brits, we got some DPM improvements on Hampshire and Repulse, some extra repair party, some concealment on Hampshire, but one of the big losers, one of the few nerfs in this entire thing, is to Leander, where you're getting a main battery nerf. I'm shocked at that. What else do we have? The European ships. Oland is getting a main battery reload buff, and Veribus is getting an accuracy buff and a very, very slight reload time buff. You're getting accuracy and turret turn time buff on French Tier 5 battleship Bretagne. The alternate line of German DDs are getting a dedicated engine boost, as well as Z31 getting a buff to its reload time. Your premium Z35 is getting some upgrades to the hydroacoustic, slight upgrades, and main battery turn time. Then you've got all of the low-tier German DDs are now getting quarter pin for their 105 millimeter guns, which is huge at that tier. And T-22 at Tier 5 getting a torpedo and a main battery buff. That makes that ship possibly pretty nasty at Tier 5. Now we have some Commonwealth ships, the Perth and the Hector. The Perth gets an extra depth charge, no biggie. That's barely even a buff. Hector's getting more torpedo range and torpedo spread changes, as well as the ability to heal more citadel damage. Great. The basically the Italian DDs are getting the ability to mount the range mod in the 6th slot at Tier 9 and 10 for their guns. Interesting. FR025 is getting a torpedo range buff and a reload gun, main battery reload buff. Then you've got the DUCAs are getting more depth charges. The Leone is getting more smoke charges and torpedo reload time buff, as well as Tier 5 CAVOUR getting a accuracy buff. And then the big news here altogether is that the smoke generator modification upgrade and the X-ray Papa Unaone, which is the smoke signal, are both getting what I would call kind of nerfs to an extent, but it's because they are now going to be available to be placed onto like Italian ships with exhaust smoke generators, where they weren't before apparently. And it was it was too much to stack those up. But in order to compensate for that, in a shocking move, all of these ships like Perth, Wanghe, Mysore, Haida, Hector, and Vampire that have the crawling smoke, they have all been given a straight up buff to their crawling smoke time of 12 seconds. So like a 13, like a 13% buff to their action time without having any flags or anything. So that's really cool. And that's your balance changes DevBlog from today, May 31st. But wow, that is not all. There's another one. So let's go check it out. And I dread seeing this one because I've only seen the title, but you'll see what I'm talking about as soon as you see it. Yeah, you're seeing that right, folks. This is another new DevBlog that came out today on May 31st. Kitakami testing. In update 12.6, they're going to resume testing the Kitakami with its 5 quadruple torpedo tube launchers on each side. So that means you can dump 20 torps off either side of the ship. Yeah. So it says they're going to conduct a technical setup of the ship in 12.5. They've updated geometry and textures. Its armor was updated with the new tech that was added in 10.9. So it's got whatever armor is appropriate. Redistributed hit point in different parts of the ship without affecting the overall amount. So basically, what did they do? They put a little bit more of the hit points in the bow, a tad less in the stern, tad more in the superstructures. Okay. Citadel deck armor reduced and auxiliary room armor reduced. That may increase overpins on that thing. So they're going to resume testing the Kitakami. And I'm sure this same comment has been made 1,000 times, but I feel the need to make it again, and that is, what could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? So the other night, I'm playing the Kitakaze, and our team's winning. We actually won this game. And I'm in smoke. And suddenly I see torps. And I don't just see a few torps. I see all the torps. And what it was, there were two Shimikazes that launched torps across the map. And I was sitting in a spot where there was no way I could accelerate or back up and maneuver because I was mostly broadside to the torps. So there was no dodging them, and I was, on low health to begin with. But still, that's what I imagine facing Kitakamis to be like. So, okay. I'm interested to see the stats of this ship again. Is it in ship tools? Yes, it is. I'm interested to see. So this thing has 10x4. So as we said, it has 40 torpedo launchers, 20 on each side. So 5x4 on each side. These are 15-kilometer range torps with 15,633 damage each. So not quite your typical Japanese torp on the damage, but still really good. Thankfully, the reload's 141 seconds, so you gotta wait a bit. And the speed is 57 knots. And the detectability of the things is 1.9, so they can be seen like the 20-kilometer, like the 20-kilometer Shima torps that can be spotted from the moon. You can see these coming a long way off. But still, if there's 40 of them, does it really matter if you see it? if you can't get outside of the spread? Does it really matter if you see it? It's kind of like if you're going down the highway and it's a 70-mile-an-hour speed zone and you're going like 82 or 83, you pop over the hill and see the the highway patrolman with the radar, and your radar detector goes off. But at that point, the only thing the radar detector is telling you is, hey, you just got radared and are probably about to get a ticket. It's not really telling you something you don't already know. So it's basically telling you, well, that's just further confirmation that you're screwed. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about Kitakami. But power creep is real. Oh boy. Not looking forward to this. Not sure about anybody else, but the only good thing about Kitakami is I'm pretty sure it's going to be fragile. It doesn't have much gunpowder. I mean, it's based on a tier 4 cruiser. So, yeah, we'll see. But 40 torps, folks. Let's hope that they don't get the bright idea. And let me check. Oh, and did I mention it has a repair party and smoke? Thankfully, they didn't get the bright idea to give this one a TRB. Because could you imagine a TRB on this thing? Holy freakamoly. Okay. So there you go, folks. Yeah. That's crazy. But that's it. That is the other DevBlog from today, May 31st, and it was a doozy. But now let's go and play some World of Warships before this damn thing gets live and we have to eat some of its torps. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to see notifications of future videos, just ring the bell. Until next time, Tater Dawg says, woof.